behalf of our commissioner, David Garagino, uh, our teams in taxpayer education, and across the Department of Revenue. We're glad to have you with us today for our webinar on sales tax exemptions. Now, before we get started, I would like to just introduce a few folks who will be helping make today's session a great experience. Joining us today is going to be the all familiar Billy Trout, and he's with Taxpayer Education. And so we're very thankful for Billy to be here with us today. How are you
Thank you,
doing?
Jeremy, and thank you for being the host this time. This is going to be sort of Jeremy's job moving forward, so we're glad to have Mr. Jeremy on board, and as well as our other guests today. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate that. And then we also have assisting us a subject matter expert. We've got Martha Potter, and she is with Taxpayer Services, and she brings a wealth of knowledge on sales tax exemptions, helping us behind the scenes with all of the applications that we process, a lot of questions. She runs a good show here, and so we really appreciate her being part of this today.
Good morning, everyone.
Thanks so much, Martha. And then we have Mitchell Gibson. He is going to be helping us with our chat today. And Mitch, he is with the Taxpayer Services as well. And I would just qualify him as a subject matter expert too. He often helps everyone with questions they have. So, Mitch, we thank you for being part of this today as well.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone.
All right, and so let me go here. All right, so for Tennessee sales and use exemptions, what we want to see here is that I would imagine why is it that you're here today? And it's because you're either going to be a business owner, you're a CPA, an accountant professional, maybe you're working in a nonprofit. You signed up for webinar access, and there's something about Tennessee sales tax exemptions is on your mind today. And so maybe you're trying to find out if your organization, if it qualifies for an exemption. Uh, Maybe, just taxes in general is something that can kind of throw you off. And so you're looking to get more knowledge. Maybe you've been collecting tax on something that you kind of felt deep inside. Maybe I shouldn't be uh, collecting or paying tax on this. Maybe this is something that an exemption should be covering. And so it's all wonderful reasons why to be here today. The thing is that Tennessee, we have got a lot of exemptions. And so uh, you're going to find today that as we go through the list of them, it's a pretty deep category of the amount and all that they cover. And you're going to find either your business or if you're an accountant, several of your clients in this. Uh, Here's a bit of an overview that we have. We're going to be covering today's entity-based exemptions and commonly used exemption certificates. So you're going to find that there is, like I said, a large amount of them, but we're going to be able to cover the most common ones, the ones that most people have a need to use, the ones we see the most. We're going to go through a very good step-by-step of how to register through TNTAP for this. We don't want you to get the knowledge, but not be sure how to apply it. And we're going to do an overview then when we go into the exemptions. We're going to do an overview of the very most common ones. And so we want you to walk away with this with a greater knowledge. How is it I can do this? What is it that I can do to help make sure that this here works in my favor? So entity-based exemptions include, and as you're going to see here, I'm not going to read through the whole list, but you're going to see, a lot of these you're very familiar with. Certificate of resale, I think we're all pretty familiar with that one. But we have got agricultural, industrial machinery, nonprofit and educational entities, Tennessee governmental, common carriers, and the list, it really just keeps going on and on and on. So over the next hour, we're going to cover the framework. We're going to find out, what these certificates are, and hopefully you walk away with a better knowledge of how to apply this to your business. So the commonly used sales tax exemption certificates is the ones I just mentioned a moment ago. It's going to be our resale authorization certificate. This is going to be something that you're going to see basically every retail business is going to have. Wholesalers are going to be very familiar with it. We get calls, emails every day, people looking to obtain this certificate or maybe get a reprint of it. Our agricultural sales and use tax certificate of exemption. And so this is for people who, the most common example I would think of is going to be farms, large agricultural plots of land, and we're going to see a lot of those. Certificate of exemption for industrial machinery. This is one that really is going to speak to the people who are running big operations and you are questioning whether or not, when I'm fixing something, a piece of equipment, how does sales tax apply to this? Is there an exemption for me? Well, we're going to have our certificate of exemption for exempt organizations or institutions, our nonprofits. We're going to have our government certificate of exemption. This is going to be, for state employees. And then we're going to have our common carrier exemption, which is going to speak to, those who are working in interstate travel, hauling things. And so we'll go ahead and move into our first section here, how to register for sales tax exemptions through TNTAP. Now, I hope everybody here is familiar with TNTAP. TNTAP is, of my years of being here, I think I have this website memorized. I can pretty much navigate it with my eyes closed. And I really say it's of all the government websites I've ever peeked at in my life, I think TNTAP is a wonderful website. I think they've done a very good job making it highly accessible, provides loads of information. And so we do have the option now for exemptions to happen directly through the website. You don't have to worry about paper forms, mailing things in, visiting a specific office location. And so you can navigate to the TNTAP website. And I'm going to do I'm going to go to the website here in a minute and we'll do it together. But you'll see in this screenshot here, which you may need to, with the attached document for the webinar, you may need to enlarge it a little bit just to see all the fine detail here. But you're going to see on TNTAP an exemptions box. Now, this box is going to allow you, without signing in, without creating a TNTAP logon or anything like that, you can just simply go to this link, and down here at the bottom it'll say view registration links. You can use that. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to apply for a sales and use tax exemption. And I think this is good to highlight. We often have people who will contact us, years in the call center. Just a very common thing, people setting up a nonprofit, looking to, hey, does my land qualify for agricultural? And so this is a common question we get. And so you would click on the apply for sales and use tax exemption. And when you click on that, you're going to see in this second screenshot down here, it will allow you to proceed with selecting the exemption you need from the drop-down fill-out form. And so there is a limited amount of exemptions you can actually choose from this method of doing it. You can do agricultural sales and use, exemption organizations or institutions, and as well the supplement for certified green energy production. And so it does cover those. And then we're going to have the other option here I'm going to show real quick, and then we'll go through it, is how to register through TinTap when you're logged in. And so if you are someone who you've registered, you've created a login, you're able to sign in this morning after the webinar, you can go follow these steps. Reminder, some exemptions, they're only available through TinTap if you do have a logon and you've registered a sales and use tax account. So once you log into TinTap, you're going to go down to your sales and use tax account and you're going to choose additional actions. And you'll find this additional actions. It's just going to be right there next to your sales and use tax account. And you'll see it says navigate under the forms menu and select apply for sales and use tax exemption. And it will begin the form process of leading you to select which type of exemption you need. And if you look at this list right here, it pretty much covers about every type of exemption that you really would need that I can think of. And so we have multiple available here. Not all of our exemptions are available online, but a major majority of them is available for you online. And Billy,
Hey,
you got
Jeremy.
anything on that you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, just to reiterate what Jeremy is saying here too. Not only for the sales tax exemptions, but for really any of our other types of exemptions that you can apply for online. A lot of you are CPAs, accountants, etc., and you do work with us in a lot of great detail. We really appreciate it when you send us things electronically because we can get to
Yes.
them much quicker and we can put them in the order received much easier so that we can get your answers and your exemptions or whatever you're after out as quickly as possible. I know Martha would echo that when she talks a little bit later too, how important it is for us to try to expedite things nowadays. And the world of paper returns, paper applications, and checks and things like that is, yeah, we'll still take them, but we really do need people to file electronically and to use TinTap like you would your own bank account, like when you're
Yeah.
using it for your finances and everything. And so that's my 2 cents as far as that goes. Thanks, Jeremy.
I think that's wonderful advice. I'm going to switch over here real quick and I'm going to share my internet page. All right, Billy, let me know if you're able to see the TinTap website here.
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
All right, so this is just going to be a live view of what it would look like for most of you as you're going to visit our website. And so when you pull up the tintap.tn.gov/eservices website, if you scroll down, you're going to see the option for exemptions and view exemptions links. And so if you click on this right here, it's going to be where you will click on that to look up the information. Please choose your sales and use exemption type. It does give you a warning here. You can only apply for agricultural sales and use exempt, the ones that I mentioned, but please sign into your TinTap if you do not see your exemption type in the drop down. And then once you select the one, let's just say we're wanting to do agricultural sales and use, look at this. It's going to begin taking us through some information. And this is why I'm a child of technology. I think it's so good to have this because right here it just makes it really plain and clear the information that you're going to need for this. It's going to tell you, proof of government payments or copies of tax returns, or you may need a copy of a Form 1099, a Schedule F, date the land was acquired, and you would choose your ownership type. So if you're just a sole proprietorship, you're just doing this through your individual person, as you begin to go through this, you don't have to worry about the chance of submitting it with a mistake because online, when you do it, it actually will notify you that there's something missing. We need something, and so it won't allow you to submit it until all of the documentation has been uploaded and selected. And so it really does make it very easy for you that way. And the same way, if you have a 10 tap and you're logged in and you're going to register for some of these others, it works just the same. It's going to kind of do a check on you and make sure that everything's submitted correctly. And then there's another thing that I wanted to show, and this is going to kind of piggyback on what we were doing in our last webinar, the new business workshop. And this is going to be our Tennessee.gov revenue website, or tn.gov revenue. If you come to this website, and you go down here for business. And if you're a new business in the state of Tennessee, this is a wonderful place to go to. If you're even if you're an experienced business, but you want to make sure you have everything completed, right here, this for business section, I encourage it. So click on for business. And right here, let's get started for new businesses. We'll click on this. And look what we have right here. We've got exemptions. And so we've also put it right here for you. We want to make sure that you get all the information that you need to know how to register for these exemptions. Double check, is it possible you need one? And if you click on the step 4 exemptions, it actually will even break it down for you, the different tax types. So we're going to have business tax exemptions listed here. We're going to have sales and use tax exemptions listed here. And let me zoom my screen in just a little bit here. And so you would actually see the agricultural, exempt organizations, and it just gives you a lot of information on these. It even gives you the paper version of the copy, a farm business plan worksheet, which would be very beneficial. We've got the exempt organizations, and so here it's going to give you much more information as well as the application for that. And then we have the one for franchise and excise tax. So we really try to go beyond ourselves, making sure that the businesses, the individuals across Tennessee who, have that potential to be exempt, to do something, we want you to be aware of it. We want you to know it. And let me change back over here now to the document. All right. So what I'm going to do is we'll get back over here to go into our first one. So our first one that we're going to cover this morning is the certificate of resale. And this is going to be for retailers, wholesalers purchasing inventory for resale. And Billy, Martha, I'm going to just invite you to share at any point any information you would like to on this. But this is really going to be what I would consider one of the most dominant certificates. And so you may be a business right now starting off, and you are looking to sell merchandise, you're looking to uh, purchase things to sell, but you don't necessarily understand, how is it that I go to the store, I buy it, then I sell it, and then I'm all this tax work. This is where anytime I come across that, I just kind of stop people and I'm like, you are using your certificate of resale, right? And explaining it to them, it's usually kind of an eye-opening experience. And so what happens is this is automatically issued when you register a sales and use tax account. It's not something where you have to specifically request it in addition to registering a sales and use tax account. It comes with it, it's part of the package, and you're going to use it only to purchase merchandise or services that will be resold by your business and never intended for personal or business use. So, say if you are going, you know, got a big operation going, a big business, and you think, I'd like to have a nice flat screen TV in our break room so we can just kind of chill out on our breaks for a minute. That would not be something that you would want to use the certificate of resale for. We would not want to use it for that. But if you was looking to purchase a TV with the intent of reselling it, there we go. And what happens is when you purchase with that certificate of resale, that TV, you're not charged sales tax at the time of purchase. Instead, you take on the responsibility that when you sell that TV, you are going to collect sales tax on that sale and remit it back to the state of Tennessee Department of Revenue. And so it's only used to purchase merchandise or services that will be resold by your business. It's never intended for personal or business use, like I gave that example of. Sellers, they must obtain and keep these resale certificate to document non-taxable sales for resale, and items withdrawn from inventory for personal use, gifts, promotions, they must be reported on your return and tax paid. So a good example of this is maybe if you are a store and you sell fans, and all of a sudden it gets hot in the break room, and you're like, all right, I got a fan out here on my showroom floor. Let me go get that fan and bring it back here and use it for the business. Well, that fan was purchased with a certificate of resale. So what happens at this point is that fan is no longer for resale. You're consuming it in the business. So tax has to be paid, either sales tax or use tax. So you would pay use tax on that item now that you're consuming it for use in your business. And businesses with more than one location, they must hold a separate certificate of resale for each location. Uh, Most businesses, I would say, probably don't do too many locations, but you will come across different types of businesses where, they may, Billy, I'm sure you can testify to this. Sometimes you'll see some businesses, they've got 20 locations, and it's a lot to keep up with. You know, 10 locations, 5, it's a lot to keep up with. But and Billy, would you want to share a little bit about how that impacts concerning making sure each certificate of resale is used properly for each business location?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Jeremy. So yeah, you're exactly right. It is super important to register each location properly. Just as important in that is when you cease a location, when that location no longer exists, we need to know that. Okay, so on 10 tab, you can go into TinTap and close a location. And if you get confused or you don't know what to do, you can send us an email, give us a call. We'll note the system, we'll get it updated for you. But you don't want to go out and use a resale certificate for a location that doesn't exist or where you're not doing any business any longer. So that's really important. Also, one thing I just wanted to tag on to that's really not part of this slide, but it's a sort of an obvious thing for a lot of you that are on this webinar, but maybe some of you that are sort of new into business and you're kind of figuring out what's going on. Um, a lot of people will try to apply for a resale certificate because they don't want to pay tax on an item. Okay. But there is the back end of that, which Jeremy pointed out, is that you're going to end up having to pay either sales or use tax at some point on those items. So if you're not intending to resell items, you don't need a resale certificate. Okay. So you need to be really careful about when you set up your business about requesting a sales tax account, because when you do that, we are going to require that you file a tax return for every
Yes.
period for which you're registered. And if you don't do that, we send out assessments, which are basically money assessments that have you pay crazy amounts of money, which we don't really want you to do. We want you to file and pay your taxes as appropriate, but we also don't want you to register if you don't need to register. So that's my
That's
point that I wanted to make.
that's right. That's very good. And like he said, tons of times have I seen it. People will have just kind of a general misunderstanding about it, and that's the point. That's the purpose, of these webinars is, you know, who studies taxes in their free time. Um, maybe a small percentage of the population. I'm kind of in that percentage at times, but it's not something that we just want to do all the time. And so for a lot of new businesses, and this is the most honest truth, it's kind of a step into the dark when you start off. You're just trying to sometimes go off word of mouth of what other businesses have said, or maybe they've not used the correct terminology for some of these certificates or exemptions. And so we want to make sure and just kind of bring clarity to that. Um, but what I have here, it is some frequently asked questions and key details. And so some of these we may have kind of already, highlighted on, but how do I apply? And so once again, when you register for a sales and use tax account, a certificate of resale is automatically issued for that business location. And each location will need its own certificate. I want to kind of give a little heads up on this here though. If you are registering your business and the start date is a little ahead, say it is the 28th of April, and you register your sales and use tax account, and it's not going to be available until May 1st, for example, that's your start date. Here's what happens though, is that certificate, it's not going to be available to use until that date listed there. And so just something to keep in mind. Your retailers, they have a way to verify these certificates through our TinTap website. What if I move location? Well, you will need to notify the Tennessee Department of Revenue and close out the old location if you're no longer doing business there, and register your new location, because that document, that certificate, it's representing a actual physical address of what has been purchased for the intent of resale there. And so as you make shifts and changes in your business, maybe greater property opportunities open up to relocate your business, have a greater impact for business, make sure that you keep all of that information updated too. If the name of the business changed, can we still use it? So For example, if you updated your doing business as, I'm running a business, I'm Jeremy Kane, my business is 10 Tap Webinars. But then if I update it to something else with the Department of Revenue, but I'm still using that old certificate of resale with an old doing business as name, it can cause issues, it can cause problems. So like I said, anytime you make an update to the address, to the name, the DBA, things like that of the business, you definitely want to make sure you get fresh documents that reflect that, just so it doesn't cost you any problem when you're going to the vendor looking to make that purchase. This is a common question. Does the certificate of resale expire? No, they do not. They do not expire, but vendors may request a recent copy. And there could be a variety of reasons for that, but they may request a recent copy. That's something I periodically see, but they do not expire. And it's not something that you have to call back and renew. If you've been issued one and you've not moved locations or changed your name of your business, and 20 years later, that certificate is still valid. What can happen is at times, which you can, within your 10 tap, you can print off these certificates. You can go into your more menu and letters, and you can print these off. But after so many years, it may not be visibly archived within your 10 tap. And so sometimes we may have to print off or generate a new one for you to print off, so you can just contact us if you don't find it. But they do not expire. If they request a new one, yeah, we can easily accommodate that for you. And a key tip is always present your certificate to the seller at the time of purchase. Dealers may keep a copy on file. So that's good to know. Some of those dealers, they may keep it with them. We're going to head on into agricultural exemptions, and I would like to ask Martha if she'd like to join me on this one. Martha, she is the expert for agricultural exemption. She has helped answer a lot of my questions in the past, and a lot of the people across Tennessee, whether they knew it or not, Martha has been instrumental in helping them with this. And so, Martha, as I go through here, if any of these topics or things just kind of bring anything to mind, feel free to jump in on that. But what would you say, like, what is the volume of agricultural exemptions that we see? Is it a pretty high number?
It is, and more so now this time of year because we're starting to, plant and get our crops ready to be planted and whatever. So yeah, we're seeing kind of an increase in agricultural exemptions right now.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of people, there's often a lot of questions about what qualifies them for that. How can they go about registering for it? And we got that information in here. Thankfully, we've tried to list here for you some pretty good bullet points that's going to help make it clear and show you the path of how. And so some of these points right here is for qualified farmers, timber harvesters, and nursery operators. The agricultural exemption, it exempts tangible personal property used primarily, which is more than, it's the 50% test. Is it, 51% and more being used on the farm, agricultural land, or is it being used for personal use? Which one's greater? And so if it's being used more than 50% of the time in agricultural operations for sales and use tax, that exemption would work for you in that. And Martha, do you have some examples maybe of some situations where people are looking to purchase something with that exemption, but it's not meeting that 50% test?
Actually, yes, we get all kinds of things come in, phone calls, everything. Um, you know, one of one of the ones that I do remember is somebody tried to buy a pontoon boat to be able to go around their property, you know, that's, I guess, in water to see if they were, you know, check the crops and things like that. So
Yeah.
that definitely did not qualify.
Yeah, it's interesting sometimes to see that, but we have to definitely go by the guidelines on that. We have to look at,
Yeah.
what's this going to be used for? Does it qualify?
Mhm.
So qualifying items, they may include, but they're not limited to farm equipment,
Now,
seeds. Oh, go ahead.
there
Yeah.
are some things that we get several times we get people trying to buy vehicles like
Yes.
trucks and things like that. And that's not exempt where they think that it is because they may be using it on the farm. However, if the truck goes on road, then that wouldn't be exempt.
Mm. Yeah, that's going to be something right there that it's not going to be considered a potential at all for them, right?
Correct.
I had a guy one time that sent us pictures of his motorcycle that he used to take salt blocks out to his cows out on the farm on the tank of the motorcycle, and that's what he decided that would be the way it was agricultural purpose. And we had to tell him again about motor vehicles are not exempt
Right.
with agricultural exemption certificates, so we just can't do that. But yeah, it's an interesting angle. Boats and motorcycles, no, not so much, right? Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Definitely look at the agricultural exemption tax guide that's on our website. That's a great resource to kind of have. If you have questions on what is taxable, what's not taxable,
Yes.
that would be something that I would recommend that you look at. And if you're still not sure, then always reach out to us.
Absolutely. And calling us, emailing us,
Mhm.
those always welcome. We would always be more than happy to research that question, that situation. And, it's nothing hurts asking the question. But the qualifying items they're going to be limited to are not limited to, but farm equipment, seeds, seedlings, fertilizer, pesticides, livestock feed, bedding, fencing, building materials, and then energy, fuel used in production, and et cetera, et cetera. And so sometimes, we may have to look it up just because there can be a vast quantity of things that do or don't qualify. So it never hurts to ask. But you must be a qualified farmer, timber harvester, nursery operator, including those providing for hire agricultural services. And the qualifying criteria is $1,500 in annual agricultural sales and land under the Agricultural, Forest, and Open Space Land Act, or a Schedule F in the Form 4835 on your federal return. So, Martha, does this mean, for example, the $1,500 in annual agricultural sales? Would this mean that if I am maybe have, some animals and a garden, and I am producing enough product from both of those, selling it, that if I start making maybe $5,000 a year, I could qualify for an agricultural exemption?
Yes, that is correct. As long as your gross or whatever product that you are raising is and you sell it for over the 1,500, or you have receipts that add up to 1,500. If you're selling your eggs or your vegetables at a little, farmer's market or something, those receipts if they total up to 1,500, or if you have one big sale, such as cattle, animal, livestock, then that would qualify you to be exempt under the agricultural exemption.
Very
You would just
interesting.
have to provide, yeah, you would just have to provide those receipts.
Okay, that's good to know that. And I think that might actually help a lot of people just understand that it's not a big complex. You don't have to have a massive agricultural plot of land to do this. You actually very well may be able to qualify for this. And so it's worth looking into. Out of state farmers may apply for a Tennessee certificate, but we do not honor other states' agricultural exemptions. So just kind of remember that. And then certificate is valid for 4 years and it must be renewed. And the current certificates must be presented to the seller at the time of a purchase. And so some good frequently asked questions is, how do I apply? You can do this through the TinTap website, just like we showed you, whether you're not logged in, whether you're logged in. And we also have down here for your ability to just, copy and paste this or type this in, the form number right here. And so a lot of different ways that you can apply. What if I move locations? You will need to notify the Tennessee Department of Revenue if the farm moved, or whatever it is that you're operating this for. If you've moved even just down the road, even just a change of address is going to make this have to be renewed, because we have to know that specific place of land.
Now I will say that if a entity has multiple properties, we
Okay.
only issue one agricultural exemption per entity. So if you have 5 other locations that you have some type of agricultural on, then you would just need to select one of those properties to be the location of that's on the agricultural exemption certificate, and you would be able to use the certificate for all 5 of the properties.
That's very good information. And the viewers, you can definitely read over the rest of this information. It's something that will be able to be very helpful, very good for you to know these things. And some of it we've already kind of spoken of. But we'll go ahead and move on to our next exemption, and this is industrial machinery exemption. Martha, but how often do you see these applied for, or in what quantity?
We see these quite a bit. I would say right now we probably received maybe 5 or 6 via online just overnight. So we get these pretty regularly.
Oh, very good, very good. And when I started learning more about industrial machinery, this isn't just small tax savings. This can be the difference between thousands of dollars being saved, if not maybe more, in the course of a long-term project or something, hundreds of thousands for some of these big corporations and businesses who have a lot going on. So this one, I think this here is a heavy hitter for the state of Tennessee. Tennessee is a booming, growing state. We're seeing all types of businesses relocating, building up here. And so this one definitely may catch your attention. You may not even realize that you qualify for this, even if you're working in the size of your growth. And so Tennessee provides a sales tax exemption on industrial machinery purchased by qualified manufacturers or processors. And it's for qualified manufacturers and contractors, I guess one could say. Industrial machinery includes, apparatuses, equipment, the all the associated parts for that piece of equipment, accessories. It even covers the repair parts that are necessary for the fabricating or processing tangible personal property to resell. Now that sounds like a lot of technical terms there. Martha, a coffee pot is what helps get me going, but I don't think I could use an industrial machinery
No.
certificate to get this coffee pot fixed to keep me going. But
Right.
if you have an assembly line and something on that assembly line messes up, a gear, part of the track, something like that, and it's essential for the fabrication of that product, this right here is just a perfect example of what it can be used for. This can be applied for online. It can be done through the TinTap website. And so, you want to make sure though, if you're going to do it, you need to have a sales and use tax account and a already registered. And this was a big thing I think Martha pointed out to me, is that's a necessary thing that they have to obtain this exemption. Is that right, Martha?
That is correct. You're required to have a active sales tax location ID for the facility that you're applying for.
Very good. Let's see. So to qualify, the business must be primarily 50% gross receipts engaged in fabricating or processing the tangible property for resale and consumption off premises. Qualification is determined on a per location basis, and contractors installing machinery for qualified manufacturers must also apply for their own authorization number for each project. Now we got you some frequently asked questions here, some information that may kind of help out. We even got the form number here for you, but what about contractors? So contractors, they must apply separately, just like that last bullet point that I hit. And this is a key thing: is it's not apply for it and then it's good, for 4 years. It's a time frame, and so the certificate is valid only for the specific manufacturer's facility, including a project's start and end dates. And then once that, comes to an end, uh, Martha, can they extend these, or would they reapply if more is needed later?
They can always contact our office and request an extension if it's going to go on a little longer than normal. Another type of contractor that can get this is if they're doing a project for a wastewater treatment facility or a water treatment plant. They can also apply. Now with that, they would have to provide us their contract and dates and things like that. There's a little more information that you would have to provide us for a contractor to, like it's for cities, counties.
It's very good information, and I know that we do have here that, can I recover tax already paid? Yes, you can request a refund from your vendor up to 3 years after the tax was paid. The vendor, they file a claim or they amend the return. And so it may be something you just didn't necessarily realize at that point. Billy, I wanted to bring you on if you're available, good sir, and just see if you have anything you want to add to that with us.
No, I just think it's important that folks apply for the industrial machinery exemption when they qualify. And we put in the chat that a great source for some detailed information about what might qualify is actually in the instructions for the form. There's
Yes.
quite a bit of detailed information out there for that too. But yeah, we certainly appreciate everybody's participation. By the way, we do have chat open now at this time, so feel free to type in your questions. Mitch and I are going to try to swing at as many of these as we can while Jeremy wraps up. We're running a little bit behind. We do have several more slides to go through, but we're going to do our best to try to give you an opportunity to ask these questions. Okay, thank you very much.
So moving on to the next one is the nonprofit exemption. This is for 501c3 organizations and other qualifying exempt entities. Uh, what most people don't realize, the exemption, it covers the purchases, not the sales. And so if you purchasing something for the nonprofit, and Martha, what's some good examples? Maybe furniture for it, some
Mhm.
supplies needed inside it. This would be a perfect example of what this exemption could do. So you can start getting everything kind of filled out for the organization and what you're conducting there. Purchases, they must be paid with the organization's funds. And
Mhm.
I'm sure that's probably a common error that
Yes.
can happen.
Mhm.
You do need a separate certificate for each location. And we even have over here to our right who qualifies. And this is a pretty detailed list here. This is a large amount of coverage that this gives provision to. And I would dare say nonprofits, we probably see a massive amount of them, because when you look at just that list of who qualifies, that's a big part of each community that we know of. And so they're everywhere. And you may be functioning as a nonprofit, but maybe have not, went through with the exemptions and things. So this is kind of a wake up, hey, you can qualify for this. And if you're an out of state 501c3, you don't need a Tennessee application. You can use your IRS exemption letter. And Martha, these renew every 4 years, right?
They do renew every 4 years. Like the agricultural, these automatically renew. Now, if anything happens to need to be updated, the name, the address, anything, at that point, you know, you would need to contact us to make sure that we have all of the information, um, in our system correctly before that renewal.
Okay.
I think I'd like to just tag on to that too, Martha, because
Mhm.
we see this a lot, and I know you do. You and your folks are constantly adjusting information on exemptions, but we don't know if you change your address. We
Right.
don't know if you change your officers. We don't
Right.
know until you tell us. you know so
Mhm.
we like the old joke is our crystal ball is broken. We don't know that until you let us know. So it's really important to keep your information up to date too. But one thing I wanted to point out too, Jeremy, and Martha, on nonprofit exemptions, the nonprofit exemption is to obtain items for anything that the organization is using, consuming, or giving away. Okay, if it's a sale of items, you know, which nonprofits can engage in that kind of quote business, that's not to be used. The nonprofit exemption is not to be used. You may need to register for sales tax and collect sales tax.
Mhm.
Maybe an example of that might be a church. Churches are exempt. We get that. That's
Mhm.
fine. And we're no problem with that. But there are churches that have bookstores,
Mhm.
and there are churches that can sell you a cup of coffee, and they do it every week. That's fine. It's no problem. We're good with it, but you're probably going to need to collect sales tax on those because you're just like the coffee shop or the bookstore down the street for that part of what you're doing.
And thrift
That's
stores, if an organization owns a
Mhm,
thrift store, that would
mhm.
be subject to sales tax.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Very good
Okay.
point.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Great point there. I like that. Moving on, we've got the Tennessee government exemption. Now, this is for Tennessee state, county, municipal agencies, federal government agency use. And so, what you need to know concerning this one is no application to the department is needed. The paper form which we have the form number listed there. It does not require a tax ID number, and you need a separate certificate for each location. And so, who qualifies for this? Well, this is going to be the state of Tennessee and its agencies, Tennessee counties and their agencies, municipalities, federal government, and government-owned school. And it's much in a way kind of hand in hand with what we were talking about even with like the 501c3. It's if they're going to use that exemption, if they have to purchase something for the intent of using it in the function of state. And so that's just kind of a simple breakdown of that one. And
I would like
uh,
to add on that too,
sure.
we don't accept out-of-state government exemptions.
Well,
So if
that's
it's
good
an
to know.
out-of-state government exemption trying to apply in Tennessee, we do not accept that.
That's wonderful to know right there for sure. And then common carrier exemptions. This is the last one that we'll be able to cover today. So this is for common and contract carriers and interstate commerce. Now, it does not apply to vehicles used solely within Tennessee borders. And so if you are a intrastate only vehicle, this would not qualify for that. The vehicles must be IRP registered or have federal authority. And the trucks, they must have a gross vehicle weight rating, the GVWR, of a class 3, 16,000 pounds or higher. And you actually may be able to or may purchase freight trailers, semi trailers, pole trailers exempt from sales and use tax, but they must meet motor vehicle exemption requirements. And so, who qualifies for this? It's going to be your common carriers or those public for hire. It's going to be your contract carriers who are specific shipper contracts, and your air common carriers, which is aircraft, aviation fuel exemption. And so that's going to wrap up the exemptions that we have. Now, we got some resources available on our website. We've got them linked right here, our sales and use tax exemption forms. And so this link right here, if you click on it, it actually just takes you to the official revenue website. And it's going to have all of the exemption forms available for you. Sales and use tax manual. This is very necessary if you want more information. The farmers, nursery operators, and timber harvester tax manual. The nonprofit, and then also, of course, we have our Tennessee Code annotated information right here, just if you want to look up more of that. And Billy, I don't know if we have time for questions. We tried to milk out as much of this as we could for uh, getting all the information out there.
I was going to ask Mitch to come on here for just a moment as we wrap up because we did kind of go through a lot of material today and kind of is there anything in particular, Mitch, that you've seen over in chat that is sort of a recurring theme or anything like that?
No, a lot of the questions are very, very detailed and specific toward to certain situations that they're encountering, specifically with how to treat, very specific transaction types. And so I really recommend utilizing our guides. We also have, I don't know if you've covered this, Jeremy, but our Zendesk portal. You can submit these more technical questions to our Zendesk team, and they can do an in-depth research on your particular transaction or question that you have, and they can provide a more detailed answer.
Yeah, and obviously we didn't have time to go through a lot of your questions on here. We apologize for that. We just ran out of time, and we do have to keep it to an hour, so we're getting ready to wrap up. So, Jeremy, you want to mention our little contact numbers here and that good email address?
Absolutely, I do. And so you're going to see here, we got all of our socials so you can follow us. If you want to reach out to us with a question, with like what Mitch was mentioning, we do have an email for you. It's the revenue.support@tn.gov. And then if you need to give us a phone call, you can call 615-253-0600. That is our general tax line. And if you need assistance with anything concerning, registration exemptions, we've got the 615-253-0601, and that will be more in line of good questions for exemptions.
And we do weird things, y'all. We answer the phone and we answer your email. Honest.
Yes, we do.
We really, Mitch knows. Mitch is the call center manager. They better answer the phone, right, Mitch? And I do the email, so I'm sure we'll do the email as well. And I just want to thank Martha for joining us, especially
Yes.
today. She's so busy with lots of different things, and we appreciate your expertise as well.
Very appreciated, Martha. Thank you so much.
No problem. If y'all have any questions, just, use one of the resources and contact us, and we'll be happy to help.
Right. And so we got some upcoming webinars that you'll be able to see here. Tennessee Taxes for Auctioneers on May 26th. And we do appreciate it. Let's see here. Please take a moment to complete a brief survey upon exiting, and just remember to receive your CPE credit for attending. You must answer yes to question 4 of the post-event survey and provide your name as it should be listed on the certificate. And Billy, you may have additional things you want to share.
Nope, that's it. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and Jeremy for being the host. And I just appreciate everyone's time. And again, we know we didn't get to your questions, all of them, like we normally would do, but we had a lot of material today. But again, email, call will help you. I promise you. Okay.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all so much for attending today's webinar. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.